Well, the first thing I have to look at is wages. Like I take the last place I worked at, for example, in I think it was around 2020, they implemented a new salary scale, right? Which, start at whatever level you start at, right? When I left there, which was last year, so it was in 2025, 5 years later, they still had the same salary scale. And whenever I started working there, basically everybody starts at the bottom, right? So you have your job description, which gives you this step, and you start at the bottom. Doesn't matter how good you are, how much experience you have, you start at the bottom. And so what that essentially meant was that the people who started working there in 2020, let's say you were making $20 an hour, versus somebody who started working there in like 2024, 2025, they're making $20 an hour. But the person who started there in 2020, when they started working there, they were actually making around 25% more in terms of real value than the person who started in 2025. And so what difference is there between those two people? Well, the person who started working there in 2020 had the basically the benefit of being older, being born earlier. That's literally the only difference. They weren't smarter, they weren't better. They could be the same exact person,
Yep.
but they're making 25% more because the value of literally real, like the cumulative CPI inflation rate, the government rate has inflation has gone up 25% in like the course of 4 or 5 years, which is hard for most people to wrap their head around. But a lot of us live through it, but we don't reflect how much we're earning in that scheme as well. So I can tell you that between 2020 and 2024, 2025, I didn't get a 25% raise. I was
Yeah.
working a lot more, but I wasn't earning 25% more,
Oh yeah.
Most companies, I think the average raise in the United States is 3.1%
3% per year, yeah.
Right. And that's
which is less than inflation. So
right,
I think
right.
statistically speaking, like over the last 10 years, it might even be 20, like
Hmm.
that proportionate to inflation, salaries have actually decreased, not
Oh yeah,
increased.
100%. And what you have to realize about the CPI, the official inflation numbers, is that they're very cherry picked. So they do everything they can to make them look better than they actually are. So I talk about this in the book. For example, let's say that they were measuring the price of ground beef, and ground beef gets too expensive, right? Ground beef at the time of this recording, the average price of ground beef is now higher than the minimum wage, right? So if you're making minimum wage, you can't even afford to buy 1 pound of ground beef
For every hour you work.
Right. Back in 2020, I used to buy local ground beef for like $2.50 a pound.
Jeez,
And
that's
so,
crazy.
but what you have to realize is that with the CPI, if the price of ground beef gets too high, they're going to notice that people stop buying it because they can't afford it. And so instead, they start buying pork or ground sausage or whatever they buy, and they say, "Oh, well, the consumer has shifted. They substitute it, right? They're substituting ground beef for ground pork. So instead of measuring the price of burger, we're just going to switch and we're going to measure the price of pork." And so the fact that burger has gone up exponentially in the last 5 years doesn't matter for the CPI number because it's been replaced by something cheaper.
Yeah.
And so the government will keep on using these cheaper, price points to make it look a lot lower. And so whenever this cherry pick number is exceeding 3%, which is basically where we're at today, um, it's horrifying because the real inflation, the true inflation, as I talk about in my book, is probably closer to 7% or 8% each year, depending on what you measure it against. But I think in the book I measure it with like ground beef and the price of eggs and a couple other metrics, college tuition, stuff like that, the average price of a home. And yeah, you find it's on average, it typically ends up being closer to 7% each year. And so really what you need to realize as a young person or whoever's listening to this, if you're not making 7% more each year, you're probably in real terms getting poorer each year, and it's getting harder and harder to get ahead. But most people are programmed to think that every year they get a raise, that's going to make life a little easier. And so they just keep waiting for that raise. But when they get the raise, they realize that every other price in their life has already gone up more than their raise. And so they end up in this endless cycle of trying to get ahead, basically. And so the real reason why, the American dream has essentially died is because once upon a time, like inflation was significantly lower than it is today. Like when our currency used to be backed by gold, which meant that you'd be able to exchange dollars for gold at a fixed price, and that price didn't really change for a long time. Which basically meant that if you got a 2% raise every year, you're actually making 2% more real money because the price of everything was kind of stable. And so it was so much easier for a family back then because, you go work and you get a raise every single year and you won't have to worry about trying to outpace the rising cost of everything that you're buying. But, if you look at Johnstown, like I said earlier, in Johnstown, there's around 12,000 steel workers at the time,
Hmm.
55-ish years ago. The union starting wage for the steel worker was $6.50 an hour, adjusted for CPI, official government CPI inflation. Today, that's over $40 an hour. So you had 12,000 people in a small city making over $40 an hour with union benefits. We talked about healthcare. There was no copay. Copay used to not be a thing in America. Like you go to the doctor, you didn't pay a penny because
Yeah.
everybody's healthcare was great because people were actually healthy. So,
Hmm.
you didn't have to spend an arm and a leg. Meanwhile, today, like, I think the average cost that if you want to have a kid, like just the delivery cost for most hospitals is about 30 grand. And so even if you have insurance, chances are you're going to be paying $6,000 to $8,000 out of pocket just to deliver a baby. And so think about that. If you're a young couple living paycheck to paycheck, you find out that you're pregnant, you have basically 9 months to stash, in many people's cases, $6, $8, $10,000 aside just to cover the cost of delivering the baby. That's not including the additional costs of whatever else you're going to have, all the supplies for a baby. The fact that the wife is going to be off of work because, we don't subsidize that time. They can go on, what is it, unemployment,
Hmm.
and they can earn whatever it is, 40% of their salary or whatever, which apparently in the state of Florida, like it's only I just learned this out, which I think is funny. Like Florida, your unemployment benefits top out at like the equivalent of $5 an hour. It's kind of fascinating.
That's rough.
That's why a lot of people who left, there's actually a lot of people left California for Florida and they're starting to actually migrate back because they're learning that like the state embraced a lot of good things, but they failed to actually embrace things that help like the middle class and the lower middle class. And so they're kind of like realizing that like, oh, this is kind of like a dud. I talked to a local real estate investor. He's flipped over 1,000 houses. He's very good at what he does, but he actually moved here from Florida, and he basically said that like Florida is going to become a wasteland, partially
Hmm.
because of those issues, because their salaries, their wages are very low. They're like 37th in the country. They have the second lowest paid teachers in the whole country as well. But the rich are moving there like crazy, and so they have all this excess money, but they're not able to basically build a strong middle class. And so, if you're not able to do that on the community level, I think it's going to tell a horrifying story that like rich people don't fix the problems, but fix it is a strong community, basically a strong middle class. And in America, the middle class is basically it's dissolving, it's becoming extinct, and so we're going to have these two pillars of society. You're going to have the rich and the poor. And what's fascinating is if you look at the spending in America today, the top 10% of the country, the wealthiest 10%, account for over 50% of all spending, right? So they're spending over half of the money that exchanges hands, right?
Hmm.
So you have the bottom 90% combined spending 50% of the money. And then you want to talk about how the wealth inequality, which is another section of the book. The top 10% own around 90% of all equities, which is basically stocks, right? Which is basically companies. And so the richest 10% own, call it 90% of the companies, corporations, so to speak. And so what happens when the stock market goes up? Does the average person really get richer? The answer is not really. Most of the, everybody brags about the S&P, the NASDAQ at all-time highs, but who's that really benefiting? It's benefiting the rich, and it shows because they're spending money. But if you talk to somebody in the middle class, they're like trying to figure out how to pay their bills. We're starting to see foreclosures, start to pop up, and a lot of people are losing their jobs due to AI. And so you have this really nasty cyclone of events happening right now, where we have this massive wealth gap, and it's going to get larger because a lot of the positions that AI is eliminating are actually pretty well paid jobs because it's all knowledge based. And so these knowledge based workers who might be upper middle class, they lose their job. They can't find a new job because everybody's in the same boat. And so, what happens is you have a large gap of people who used to support small and local businesses. They're all of a sudden unemployed. So
Hmm.
the whole effect trickles down the economy, and the direction that we're heading. Like you kind of have to decide, even as a Christian, like, okay, am I going to be in the rich class or the poor class, because that's what it's coming down to, right? If you don't break into the upper class, it's going to be so much harder to do in 5 to 10 years. Like, it's probably going to be harder than ever before.